Dr. Osborne's brain. Today we're talking about quercetin. So if you've got quercetin related questions, fire away. If you missed the show on Quercetin Tuesday, it's a full crash course. Make sure you go back and check that out. We'll put a link down in the show feed for you to bookmark. So if you're new to the show, it's the way it works. You ask your questions. I do my best to give you a great answer, keeping into context that this is not medical advice or substitute for doctor's advice. All that being said, we'll tackle quercetin questions first, and then we'll mop up with the end with any additional straggling questions about nutrition. So let's dive in. Does quercetin block the absorption of iodine? The answer is no, it does not. With quercetin interacting with hundreds of prescription drugs, what alternative would you recommend for allergies for a relative who uses medicine and supplements? Well, I would do a cross-reference on the medication because quercetin, bar none, when you mix it, especially with bromelain and vitamin C and nettle, it's a powerhouse for mast cell stabilization and people struggling really with allergies. So not all medicine interact with quercetin. So check of that person's medicine, make sure there will be no interaction. Your family member talk to speak. Problem with talking to your doctor, who already know, is that most doctors are trained in nutrition, and so they're going to look at you like you're crazy. You speak with your wallets, and there's so many who won't get educated and who won't come along this realm with who you can work with. Beyond that, we're just talking about what is something else you could do. High doses of vitamin C, 5 grams or more a day, can be very helpful for stabilizing mast cells. And additionally, an enzyme called DAO, diamine oxidase, can be used. Basically, it helps to degrade histamine. And so we have something called Detoxin, and we have another product called Ultra DAO that you might want to check out in that regard. I bought quercetin and glutathione for my liver enzymes. Is that okay to take them together? Yeah, there's no contraindication in taking quercetin and glutathione. Been taking quercetin with zinc since COVID, have arthritis and wondering if 500 milligrams is enough. And in particular, enough for what? If you're relatively healthy, 500 milligrams a day as a maintenance dose is probably okay. Now, if you're sick or you're struggling in other ways, surely I would encourage you to maybe consider more. But if it's just a prevention that you're doing, 500 is plenty good. And you can remember, you can also eat high quercetin-based foods as well. Let's see here. Since juniper berries have high levels of quercetin, does that make Jen or London Dry, of course, healthy? No, it doesn't, but it's a great question. Choline and inositol are frequently given together. How do you decide if you would take choline alone or in the combination with inositol? Testing, always. We test choline and inositol deficiencies, and so that's the best way to make the determination. Do you know what the source usually is for quercetin supplements? A lot of times, BJ, it's green tea extract or green tea catechins and EGCG, which are rich in quercetin. Do you think quercetin could be a good supplement for those of us probably living in mold who are unable to prove at the point or leave the house? Prove at this point or leave the house. I mean, you could. It's not going to solve for mold. Nothing solves for mold other than getting out of the mold. I mean, quercetin can help, it can certainly help as an anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, offset, possibly support offsetting, mycotoxin-induced free radical damage. But, it's not so, I mean, you can do it, but it's not something that's going to solve the problem. Thoughts? Okay, let's see. What are your thoughts on ivermectin for thyroid nodules? I don't really have any, honestly, Jeanette. If you've got thyroid nodules, it's not because you have an ivermectin deficiency, honestly, and ivermectin isn't going to cure thyroid nodules unless those thyroid nodules are caused by some type of infectious microorganism, in which case ivermectin could potentially theoretically be of benefit in that regard. So, but I wouldn't just suggest that everyone with thyroid nodules start taking ivermectin as a as a treatment um, with the expectation of great things. Where can I go to get supplements tested? Independent laboratories who run mass spec and other types of technologies that can identify ingredients. If taking glutathione causes a Herxing type reaction, does that mean your body is still toxic or just not ready for it? It depends, Melissa. Some people it's you're activating the liver's detoxification systems. So if you've got a lot in you, you can certainly herx for that reason. And it may just be too much too quick. Some people have to start at low doses and kind of titrate their way up. So I would encourage you to explore that as a potential possibility. As far as liposomal glutathione, you got to be careful. A lot of the liposomal products that are out on the market are contain corn, and if you're trying to follow no grain, no pain, that can land you in hot water. And I've seen some people reacting to liposomal glutathione because of that reason. And when they switch to a non-corn derivative, then they do just fine. So I definitely would have a concern there. Should quercetin be taken every day like a multivitamin? Depends on what you're approaching it for and trying to do. Depends on your dose. I don't recommend high doses, 2000 plus milligrams a day indefinitely for anyone. Quercetin, also has some effects that, we don't necessarily need to engage indefinitely. And so one of the next questions was about COMT gene variation. Catecholomethyltransferase is a gene, and that quercetin can inhibit the enzyme made by this gene, or it can inhibit the functionality or output of this gene. And the answer to that, that is true. So high doses of quercetin, if you are a slow COMT variant, you have to consider that might help drive anxiety. So be aware of that. If you're going to take higher doses over a longer period of time, that if you do have that COMT slow variation, then you might have to taper your dose back, or you might have to limit quantitatively how much you're going to use. But look out for depression or anxiety as symptoms in that regard. Why does quercetin make my poop smell like horse manure? It's probably killing off microorganisms in your GI tract. It's a quercetin is used as a bowel regulator, and it does have a kind of a mild antibiotic effects, and so you may be killing off some things as a result of using it. So another question, and this one from Scott: is it safe to take long-term Ultra Q? Again, it goes back to who you are and what are you trying to accomplish with it. As a general rule, if you're taking 1,000 milligrams or less, it's generally pretty safe. There's no side effects. There's actually, with quercetin, there have been some pretty decent studies on long-term high-dose use without really side effects beyond upset stomach. I know some of the concerns that people have is that because it acts as a natural antimicrobial, that somehow going to be suppressive of the healthy microbiome, and that is a consideration that you do want to take. So going back to it depends on why you're trying to take it over long periods of time. But as a general rule of thumb, if you're 1,000 milligrams a day or less, it's generally pretty safe. Let's see. How does quercetin compare to echinacea? Different mechanisms of action. I mean, quercetin and echinacea don't work in the same way. So it's kind of like an apple orange comparison. They're both good. They both are enhancing and supportive of immune function. Um, but not an apple to apple comparison. Do you have any suggestions for something I could apply topically for a recent growth or skin tag? Not exactly sure. Well, one, get it checked out. Make sure you get it checked out. You don't want some kind of melanoma or something progressing on you. But outside of that, you can try a number of different things to apply topically. But you could try a topical application of peroxide. You could try. I've seen some success with those with castor oil as well. But certainly you'd want to get it checked out. Does quercetin impact thyroid function, iodine absorption, or kidney function at higher doses? No, I've not really seen it cause any kind of organ decline, Kim. So at higher doses, again, very safe, no major side effects outside of just generalized uh, uh, stomach agitation in some, not in all, and just it's a pretty rare side effect actually. Most people I've ever put on quercetin at higher doses over three or more months on a stretch, virtually symptom free as far as side effects. Is taking 3 capsules a day for long-term use okay? As a general rule, yes. Again, depending on what you're it could help with other drugs as well. But I agree with your sentiment that you don't necessarily want to be in that situation. My quercetin says it's from Sephora japonica extract. Is that a good source? Yeah, that's a good source. My friend's mother is 76 and having problems with incontinence. Her doctor wants to do a total hysterectomy. My friend is looking for alternatives. Boy, that's not a that's not a Facebook or YouTube question, Diana. That's a big question. I mean, that's a serious, serious consideration. Anytime somebody's looking at a full organ removal surgery, it's not anything that I'm going to be able to answer for you effectively here. That being said, I'd encourage you to encourage her to get with a good functional doctor and talk about alternatives with greater context as part of the conversation, because there's a lot of things that could be contributing to incontinence, and that needs to be explored in more depth. So question from Kane, yes. Can quercetin help with autoimmune disease, antiphospholipid syndrome? Again, any questions pertaining to can quercetin help with autoimmunity? Possibly it could support you, but it isn't going to reverse autoimmune condition. It's, you've got to look for autoimmune triggers. There's food, there's chemicals, there's microbes, and there's nutritional deficits that are autoimmune triggers that need to be looked for. And so I wouldn't look to just say, hey, you have autoimmune disease, everybody take quercetin and expect fantastic outcomes. Can drinking out of plastic bottles cause gastritis or ulcers? I haven't seen anything that shows that to be the case. I would say that drinking out of plastic, though, definitely can increase your exposure to phthalates and other plasticizing chemicals that mimic estrogen and can create a host of problems in terms of overall health. So wouldn't encourage it. How's our sound, Mel? I'm getting a lot of feedback complaints.
We had some internet issues, but I hotspotted it. We should be good now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about the sound difficulties, folks. I think we got the problem fixed. Is quercetin good for mold sensitivity? If you have mold allergies, quercetin, again, because its role in helping to stabilize the mast cell that releases histamine, it may be helpful for you, Sheila, in that regard. But if we're talking about mold in your house and you're being exposed on a regular basis, you've got to solve that as the core thought and issue. Would you recommend quercetin for vertigo? I'd recommend figuring out why you have vertigo. Honestly, again, it goes back to the question. The question just keeps coming. Do you recommend quercetin for X disease? Fill in the blank on the disease. I recommend finding out why the disease exists. Quercetin can certainly be supportive of your health and immune system and antioxidant function, but it isn't, it's not something that I would say use this to treat your X disease. What causes bowel neuropathy? Gluten. Big one is gluten, Sharon. If you haven't been properly tested for gluten sensitivity, consider genetic HLA-DQ testing. You should check out, if you haven't already, go to glutenfreesociety.org, sign up there. We'll send you tons of free information on gluten and the relationship it has with nerve damage, and get you educated about it. But gluten is a primary driver in that regard. We see a lot of that where gluten shuts down, not even just the nerves of the bowel, but the nerves in the brain, the nerves in the periphery. It can cause peripheral neuropathy, it can cause bowel neuropathy, it can cause brain neuropathy, etc. Okay, let's see here. What nutrients are depleted by COVID illness and the spike protein, either directly by the virus using it up or indirectly? I mean, predominantly all of them, right? Because when you have, depending on the kind of aggressive nature of COVID that's striking you, like if you're having cytokine storms, and your inflammation is being driven up really aggressively, you're going to burn through every nutrient at a much higher rate. That's just part of it. Your body needs nutrients to help you heal, repair, recover, and support your immune function. So B vitamins, vitamins A, D, E, and K, vitamin C is going to be depleted. Minerals are going to be depleted. This is why it's so important when you're thinking about prevention that strategy, my strategy, one of the things I do every day without fail is I take my things, and that's going to give you food insurance. You should eat well too. I mean, we don't use them well. Like we wouldn't go eat ice cream and candy and then just say, I'm going to take a multivitamin and everything's going to be okay, because that's bad form as well. But eat good food, whole food, and take a high quality multivitamin like Ultra Nutrients, and you'll take yourself far in the nutritional realm. Now, beyond that, it's anyone's game. I mean, it depends on the nature and the strength of the illness and the length of time you've had it and other variable factors. But if I were trying to recover from an illness like that, what I would recommend, Melinda, would be our immune protocol. And if you haven't seen that, we'll put a link down in the feed for you to check it out. But those are the core nutrients that I recommend people use to support their ability to recover. I have an MRI coming up for the heart in 3 weeks, but hope I don't get sicker with the contrast that they use. I also had open heart surgery as a baby. Can ozone therapy be one way to feel better? Ozone wouldn't be my first choice. Look, if you're well, I'd talk to your doctors about the need for the contrast. I mean, if they can't visualize your heart, ask them if there's a way they can visualize your heart without having to use contrast. Because if you're already sick and struggling, contrast dyes can be problematic for a lot of people. Let's see here. Sick sinus syndrome. Do you think that amino acids or other supplements might help stabilize sick sinus syndrome? I mean, define sick sinus syndrome. Do you have a sinus infection, an upper respiratory infection? Do you have chronic sinusitis that's not infectious in nature, but is just inflammatory in nature? Because it depends on what you're referring to. I mean, amino acids could be helpful if you're immunocompromised as a result of protein malnourishment. Your immune system requires protein to produce antibodies to help you fight. And that can be very important in people that have a chronic sinusitis. But wouldn't, when I think about sinus clearance, the thing I think about first and foremost is a mucolytic is N-acetylcysteine. NAC would be the thing that I would just at first glance go toward. For someone that has vertigo, what amino acid should I be considering? If you have vertigo, you're asking me about amino acid, because verticals, I don't know what you mean, Dan. Maybe rephrase it, but I'm going to assume you mean vertigo. If you have vertigo, what amino acids should you be considering? All of them. 9 amino acids are essential. The other 11 are what we call non-essential, but many of them are conditionally essential. But ultimately, you need to eat adequate protein from the food that you're consuming to be able to get access to amino acids. So there's not a specific one for vertigo that I would say you have to be on this one versus another. They all play important roles in neurological function. But if we look at ultimately which ones should a person take, irregardless of the situation, it would be test, don't guess. Get micronutrient testing done where you can determine whether or not you have a particular deficiency, and then from there supplement accordingly. Let's see here. What would you recommend for H. pylori, like natural? I am gluten-free for 8 years because of celiac diagnosis, and sugar-free because of insulin resistance. So if you're so you got H. pylori. So how do you know? First of all, did you get a diagnosis from your doctor? Generally, the doctors generally will prescribe what's called triple therapy, which is a couple of antibiotics combined with Nexium, an antacid. There's some good research that you might want to read and look into, Marjana, on berberine as an agent, as a antimicrobial agent. There's some studies showing that berberine has some pretty strong anti-H. pylori effects. So I'd encourage you. As a matter of fact, we have a crash course on berberine where I talk. You might want to just go watch that crash course to learn more. A question on, I've heard that someone with thyroid disease should be careful with quercetin because it inhibits thyroid peroxidase at doses above 500 milligrams and can inhibit iodine uptake above 500 milligrams. Is that correct? I haven't seen that to be, there may be some theoretical around that, but I haven't seen that to hold true. So I mean, it's not something that I would encourage people to run away from quercetin over. Quercetin, is quercetin okay for high stress? Can be. When you're under stress, there's a lot of free radical production. And so in that regard, certainly couldn't hurt you. As far as high cortisol is concerned, um, depends. So usually when you have high cortisol, it's generally because you have inflammation, right? We make more cortisol to battle inflammation. That's part of cortisol's primary function. You could take anti-inflammatories, and quercetin has anti-inflammatory. But a bigger question to ask, Blake, would be what the cortisol elevation is not the problem. The cortisol elevation is the symptom. And you really want to know what's driving the problem. What's the difference between NAC and augmented NAC? Marketing is the difference. Augmented NAC is somebody's idea of good marketing, and so they make a lot of claims about augmented NAC being superior or better, and there's no scientific backing for any of those claims. So I wouldn't go spend more money on augmented NAC versus regular NAC. Is there a test to test microplastics to see if I have a high amount in the body? Not commercially available to my knowledge. Not something that you could get easy access. Been no grain, no pain for a year. High protein diet. Thank you so much. Body blocking B12. Started your B12 and were your organ matrix. Other thoughts on opening up B12 pathways? I mean, if you're using methylcobalamin from Gluten-Free Society as a lozenge, it's a lozenge, you'll absorb B12 through your cheeks into your bloodstream. It's not so much about opening up pathways. Your body will open the pathways and use that B12 accordingly. It's more a matter of getting it absorbed into your body first and foremost. My partner has polymyalgia rheumatica and has been on a low dose of prednisone and is tapering off. What dose of quercetin and vitamin C should he go for? He also has bronchiectasis. Well, if again, I can't tell you specifically, your partner, what exactly to do, but if I had somebody in my office who had that same situation, I would be using, if there were no contraindications to use, I'd be using high doses of vitamin C at 5 grams combined with about 4 grams of quercetin. And that's where we would start. And we'd probably do that for about 4 to 8 weeks, depending on how they tolerate it and how well they do as they're doing their prednisone taper. Can sweating in a sauna help to detox microplastics? Yeah, I mean, sweating can help to detox most things. So sweat regularly. It's a great way to help your body take out the garbage. Is coconut oil the best topical antifungal? If not, what's better? There's not a better or best. There are different things that have different properties, and there are different people that have different fungi, and there are different resistances. So, I mean, coconut's good, peroxide's good, oregano's good, thyme is good. There's a lot rosemary's a good antifungal oil. So there's a lot of things that could be used. It just depends on the person, it depends on the situation, it depends on the person's response. Sometimes what you think is going to be the best isn't the best for that person. So I wish I could give you an order of greatest to least, but really there isn't one. Is taking keratin as good as taking vitamin A? No, it's not. And it's not safer either, Carol. I'm glad you asked that question. A lot of people are scared of vitamin A. We've been raised up in this world where ignorant doctors who don't study nutrition think or make the claim that high doses of fat-soluble vitamins are somehow toxic and dangerous. I mean, what's the reality? How many people have died from fat-soluble vitamin A or fat-soluble vitamin supplementation versus, say, how many people have died from over-the-counter aspirin? Last year, 13,000 or more people died from aspirin use, and we don't have mass campaigns against aspirin. But when it comes to vitamin A, everybody wants to turn tail and run. Taking vitamin A in the form of retinoic acid is fine. Retinol is safe. It's effective. Can you overdose on it? Yes, you can, but not if you're being reasonable with it. Carotene and other carotenoids are not vitamin A. They're pro-vitamin A. And if your gut's broken, it's very hard for it to convert carotenoids into active vitamin A. So you can become vitamin A deficient very readily if you have chronic gut inflammation. I wouldn't call carotene safer by interest in vitamin A, provided A is being used responsibly. And I mean, we put people on anywhere from 12.5 to 50,000 units of A for months and months at a time. But the key there is we measure and we monitor. We don't just do it indefinitely forever. But don't fear the vitamin A. Kristen says, I got my mom your micronutrient test. Most of her results were in range, but looked close to being on the lower side. I think she should take your multi and retest. Thoughts? I mean, if her results look really good, she can take my multi. She can take our multi and retest. But there's no need to retest right away, Kristen. I mean, I would, our recommendation with intracellular nutrient analysis is at 6-month intervals, get it tested. Why 6 months? Because we're measuring a something called lymphocyte proliferation, which is the lymphocyte has a 6-month life cycle. So we're actually looking at nutrition status over an average of 6-month period of time. So that being the case, know that you don't have to recheck that test, every month or every couple of months. Every 6 months is sufficient. Does quercetin deplete glutathione? If so, no, it doesn't. It actually, quercetin, in a sense, it's an antioxidant, right? It helps to regenerate or reduce glutathione back into its active form. Now, if you're taking a lot of quercetin and your body's burning through it, you will make an oxidized version of quercetin that has to either be excreted through the process of glutathione. So glutathione will actually help to excrete that oxidized version of quercetin. But active quercetin will actually help regenerate glutathione. So it's not necessarily that quercetin depletes the glutathione, because in effect, it actually preserves the glutathione through its antioxidant functions. Is it true that you can't raise IgA levels if really low? No. You got to figure out why they're low. For a lot of people, they're low because of gluten. Gluten is a major driving force behind IgA deficiencies. Protein deficiency, vitamin C, glutamine deficiency, all can contribute to low IgA as well. Thoughts on monolaurin? It's a great antifungal, antimicrobial, if necessary to use. I don't know if you have anything specific beyond that, Candace, that you're asking. My son is type 1. My son has type 1 diagnosed in December. Have you talking about type 1 diabetes? I'm going to assume you are. On a low-carb diet and have began fermented foods, what other steps would you take? Doctors are saying it's incurable. Type 1 is tough. It's I've seen one case in 25 years where a young man was able to get off of insulin, but I've seen a lot of people that have had type 1 diabetes and that that they still need insulin. So you have to tread that carefully. I would tread that really carefully. What we have seen more often than not is people going on grain-free diets, on the no grain, no pain diet, doing tremendously well with type 1 diabetes, but still needing insulin. They just need a lot less of it. Their blood sugar's better controlled, their A1C and their blood glucose overall improve, and they need less insulin. And so that's a victory. But I would be real cautious about taking anyone with type 1 diabetes off of insulin. It just would be it'd be a really touchy thing. So you got to be careful. Make sure if you're going that direction, make sure you're working with somebody who knows what they're doing. I have high blood platelets and my doctor has me on high doses of aspirin. What supplements can I take to bring them down? Well, I mean, platelet elevations have causes, and aspirin deficiency is not the cause. Aspirin will prevent your blood from clotting while simultaneously tearing a hole in your mucosal lining of your stomach and your intestines, leading to leaky gut. Aspirin can cause a cold blood loss through the intestines. Aspirin depletes vitamin C, folate, and iron, especially high dose. When I say all those things, I'm saying that aspirin at doses at 7.5 milligram doses, which is about a tenth of the size of a baby aspirin, can do all the things I just said. So you need to talk to your doctor about causing instead of symptom hammering and bludgeoning, with aspirin. I love this. Marcia says, love my Ultra Q. My husband and I just celebrated 15 years since we met you and how dramatically it improved our lives. Thank you. You're welcome, Marcia. Good hearing from you. Elderly mom having chronic UTIs, has had a lot of antibiotics, just can't seem to get ahead. You got to figure out why the UTIs are there. That's immunosuppression. Antibiotics are sometimes necessary, but if she's had chronic repetitive UTIs, the antibiotic repeat is not going to help her. You've got to bolster her immune system and figure out why those UTIs are occurring. For most people, the chronic UTIs are excessive carbohydrate in their diets. At least that's been my experience. And so when you control the diet, a lot of times the UTIs start going away. They're just, remember, your blood, when you have high blood sugar, your blood's a petri dish for bacteria to thrive in, and you don't want that, especially if you have chronic, any type of infection. I work out, use dry sauna, and it takes a lot to break a sweat. I feel this doesn't seem normal. Any suggestions? Do you work out in an air-conditioned environment, Terry? Because if you do, try working out in a non-air conditioned environment. That generally solves the problem. Now, some people sweat more than others. There are definitely genetics that play a role in sweating. But a lot of people, when they're working out, don't sweat because they're working out at 70 degrees or 72 degrees or something comfortable in that realm. Try working out in 85 degrees. You will sweat. So that would be my suggestion. Let's see. Does the pancreas and liver have anything to do with seizures? Seizures, it depends on the kind of seizure. Not really. I mean, the seizures typically neurological problem. A lot of seizure disorders have been linked to gluten sensitivity. Janet, there's a really good show on Discovery Health a number of years ago on gluten causing seizure disorder. And so if you haven't explored gluten-free, grain-free at this point, that would be the first thing with seizures I would recommend. Now, gluten can cause seizures. It can also cause liver damage. It can also cause pancreatic inflammation. So there's a connection with a food driving all three of those things. But does pancreatitis or liver damage cause seizures? Not so much. They generally, when you see that type of systemic inflammation in organs or systems, that usually something or some things are driving that inflammation. And so the correlation is to what a lot of doctors are going to try to treat medication wise. Toenail fungus. Rosemary, thyme oil, oregano oil, peroxide. But ultimately, if you've got repeat toenail fungus, you keep your foot out of the shoe, out of the sock, because that hot, moist sweat that accumulates inside of a tennis shoe with a sock on a foot is just going to provide a source of dark temperature and moisture for mold to continue to perpetuate. But you might also have immunocompromised issue, Catherine, and so sometimes the toenail fungus presentation is in people who have problems with poor immune function. So you got to keep that in mind. Liesel from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. keep following the book. If you're following no grain, no pain with an IBS colitis, stay the course with that. Make sure you're on a really good probiotic, something like Ultrabiotic Defense. That can be very invaluable as well. But get to phase 2 of the diets. If you're already there, get to phase 2 as quickly as you possibly can. That's where most of the heavy lifting is going to happen in terms of healing. Let's see here. Is there a shower head filter you recommend? Yeah, I mean, there's several brands. They're all basically the same technology. You want to look for a shower head that has granular activated carbon in it, as well as a compound called KDF. KDF. K as in kangaroo, D as in dog, F as in Frank. Let's see here. Is milk thistle good to detox the liver? Yeah, I mean, milk thistle is very powerful, and it definitely has. There's a lot of medical literature on milk thistle's benefits for liver inflammation. Not on meds, but have been getting high blood pressure readings. What are causes that I should be looking at? Watch my crash course on blood pressure, and it's very comprehensive. I mean, some low-hanging fruit, eliminate processed foods, make sure you're doing high intensity interval style exercise to tolerance, make sure you get sunlight every day, avoidance of sugar. Those are just really simple things you can start doing right now that have the potential to lower blood pressure. How much quercetin for PCOS? Anywhere from 1 to 2,000 milligrams a day you could try. But I mean, remember what PCOS is. I think a lot of you are getting wrapped up in, I want to take this product for my illness, and you're missing the point. Quercetin is a very powerful antioxidant and anti-inflammatory, and there certainly are indications where it can be helpful. But what you should all be walking away from this show every week understanding is that it's not what can I take for my disease so much as how can I pursue causation of my illness? What are the triggers? I can promise you quercetin deficiency didn't cause your PCOS, no more than any medication deficiency causes illness. And so you have to look at what PCOS is. It's diabetes of the ovaries. Your blood sugar's too high. It's why your doctor probably wants to treat you with metformin. So you have to address that as a core piece, right? So you can use quercetin to help support your body through that, but the discovery of causation becomes the more important journey. Nutritional supplementation is just that, supplementing you through your journey of ascertaining the origin of what's driving the underlying illness, and not trying to medicate the symptoms of the illness or the illness itself with any kind of medicine, whether it be pharmaceutical or whether it be green medicine. Had my gallbladder removed many years ago. What supplement will help with fats? We have something, Tina, called Lipogest, which is designed specifically for people without gallbladders. So you might want to go check that out. We'll put a link in the notes for you. How to get rid of fluoride and chlorine in New York City tap water? You need a filter. The best kind of filter to do that is RO, reverse osmosis. Carbon won't pull fluoride very well. It'll pull some, but it won't pull it very well. It'll pull chlorine really well, but if you're trying to get the fluoride out, you need RO. It's the best way to get it out. How much quercetin for histamine issues? Anywhere from 1,000 to 4,000 milligrams a day, Diane. What's the recommended dose of quercetin to maintain daily supplementation for 40+ women? I mean, 500 to 1,000 or even less, or even just food-based quercetin, eating foods that are richer in quercetin. What are the vitamins and trace minerals for healthy pregnancy? All of them. Babies need all of it. They need all the vitamins and all the minerals to grow healthfully, and the mother does too, to support the growth of the baby. If you're asking specifically, do we have a multivitamin? We have Ultra Prenatal, which is a multivitamin mineral supplement for mothers or expecting mothers. And so, Medina, you might want to check that out. Okay. I know we're not quite at time, but I have to wrap it early today, folks. I've got a meeting I've got to hit. So I hope you enjoyed today's Q&A. Remember, our mission here is to save 100 million lives. And each week we're here live twice a week to bring you information that you won't get anywhere else. And so how do we support that mission? You can hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit that bell if you're on YouTube, so you get reminders, keeping in mind that we do get suppressed. Our information is highly, I think, shadow banned. And that being said, the best way to get informed is to go to glutenfreesociety.org and sign up there for our newsletter. It's free, but you'll get updates when we go live. You'll also get access to special discounts and coupon codes for our store, where if you want to support us in that way, we have over 100 different supplements and lab testing for nutritional deficiencies and gluten sensitivity that you can have access to with the highest level of purity and the highest degree of scrutiny in our product. So you can support us that way. You can support us, sign up for our newsletter, and you can support us by sharing. Again, sharing is caring. We're saving 100 million lives, and we can't do it without you. So thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you Tuesday for another crash course, and back here Thursday at 12:30 Central Standard Time for a live Q&A. Hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Take care.